Welcome back to Something in the Wilderness. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, I have a very special episode because I'm not going to be talking about the music of Andrew McMahon. I know, surprising, right? This isn't going to be a Jack's Mannequin. It's not going to be a Something Corporate episode. Not going to be Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness. Today, we're talking about a different band, but related to Andrew McMahon. But first, I want to introduce to you my guests. So I reached out online to find some passionate, hardcore Dashboard Confessional fans. And I want to introduce to you Stephanie and Charlie. Thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm excited because I don't know a whole lot about Dashboard Confessional. I like their music. I would say I'm a fan, but I wanted to find some people who could really talk about who they are, their music, and kind of dig a little deeper into this band. Like maybe I've been able to with Andrew McMahon. I just don't have that history and that quite the same connection to Dashboard Confessional. Let's start with Stephanie. Tell us, how did you get into Dashboard Confessional?
Sure. So when you say that you were looking for a passionate fan, hi, that would be me. I've been a Dashboard fan for 20 years. So I was a freshman in high school and I was in geometry class. And this girl that sat next to me, she was like into very cool music. Like I thought that she was a very cool person. And she mentioned the song Screaming Infidelities. And I was like, well, that sounds like an interesting song. And so I went home and I illegally downloaded it, of course, because it was, 2002, I guess.
Because that's what you did at that time. Yeah,
that is exactly what you did at that time. And yeah, I made a gold rewritable CD with all of these Dashboard songs I found on LimeWire, and that just became what was in my CD player for years.
How about you, Charlie? How did you get into Dashboard?
Well, you're not going to believe this story, but when I was a freshman in high school, I was in biology class, not geometry class. Everything was winding down, so she let us play music, and one of my friends had a CD that was burned at the time, and one of the songs came on and it was Screaming Infidelities by Dashboard Confessional. And much like Stephanie, I heard the song, and when I went home from school that day, I got on LimeWire and I pirated everything I could find to become more familiar with the band. And here we are 20 years later. I've moved on from the pirating, but still very much enjoy listening to the music.
Awesome.
There is this thing on Netflix. It was like about like the 90s and the 2000s. And there was an episode about illegally downloading music. And what I thought was so funny about it was that they started off talking to the guy from Metallica and how like pirating music and illegally downloading music ruined his life. And then I kid you not, immediately after that, Chris Carrabba is being interviewed and he was like, yeah, I wouldn't have a career without LimeWire. Thank you so much for illegally downloading my music.
I would bet it was the same for me as well. That's probably where I got started because I do have burned copies of both of the first two albums. And so I got to believe that's where I got them from. It sounds like it was definitely Screaming Infidelities that turned you both on to Dashboard. Now, are either of you a fan of Something Corporate or Jack's Mannequin or ever have been? Or what's your familiarity there, just so we have some kind of baseline to start from?
I am somewhat familiar with Jack's Mannequin, just know a handful of songs, but I would not consider myself a huge fan or anything.
Okay.
If you played the more popular songs, I would recognize them. But I mean, until I got connected with you for this podcast, I didn't even realize that Andrew McMahon, Jack's Mannequin, and Something Corporate were all the same singer.
Same.
I'm glad you say that, Charlie, because I first thought of reaching out to current Andrew fans and asking that group who also likes Dashboard, but then I stepped back and I said, why don't I just ask the Dashboard fans, not the Andrew fans who also like Dashboard? So that's why we're here tonight to talk about Dashboard. So that's perfectly all right. There is no knowledge of Andrew or any of his music required for this episode. Absolutely not. And I'm not going to even try to introduce you to any of his music. That's going to be up to you if you ever want to. So let's see here. So I'm going to go through what I have as a very brief history on Dashboard Confessional, and then you guys can jump in anywhere, throw in anything that you want to contribute. as I go along. How about that?
So I told you that I'm kind of a type A person and I made notes. So if we skip anything, I have some notes that we can refer to.
Well, would you like to start? I have no problem with that.
I would love to. I would love
Okay,
to.
why don't you go ahead?
Okay, so Chris had been playing in a couple different bands. The Vacant Andes were one of them. And then Further Saints Forever is the one that most people have heard of. And he was on tour with Further. And he started writing songs that were not Further Seems Forever songs, that they would eventually become Dashboard songs. And it was just him and an acoustic guitar, and that was it. And so he recorded the Swiss Army Romance and The Places You've Come to Fear the Most, just him and a guitar. And that's really where people began to take notice, particularly with the song Screaming Infidelities. And then he did a couple of acoustic EPs, one of which included like the most like pivotal Dashboard song, which is Hands Down. So that was on one of those acoustic EPs. And then for the next album, A Mark, a Mission, to Brand a Scar, he actually did a full band sound. And that was my first like release as a fan. So like I had been a fan and now a new album was coming out. And so that album always like has a like special place in my heart because I made my mom drive me to Target and to buy the CD. And then this is not Dashboard history. This is Stephanie history. But I let my boyfriend at the time borrow that CD and then we broke up. And I was way more concerned about getting that CD back than I was about like my own feelings or his feelings. I didn't care. I wanted that CD back.
I've been there.
In 2006, Dusk and Summer came out, which was another full band album. And so the song Stolen was on that record, and that got a little bit of radio play. And then on subsequent releases of that album, they actually added Vindicated, which was on the Spider-Man 2 soundtrack. So that was like the single that was released for that movie. So it wasn't originally on Dusk and Summer, but then they added it later. And then Chris made an acoustic album, The Shade of Poison Trees, which was not very popular, but it was a return to that acoustic sound, but it just wasn't very well received. But that album slaps and everyone should listen to it. And then after that, they went on the 10-year anniversary of the Swiss Army Romance tour. And after that, the band Dashboard Confessional went on a hiatus. Chris Carrabba did not go on a hiatus. He started another band called Twin Forks. And they have like a lot of like bluegrass kind of influences. So there's like clapping and stomping and hooting and hollering and stuff. So he kind of did this other project for a little while. And then in 2015 came back from hiatus and did a tour with Third Eye Blind. And that kind of like got the ball rolling. And so a couple of years later, he released his first album since Alter the Ending. I think I missed Alter the Ending.
Yeah, I almost said that, but I was like, maybe I missed it.
Nope.
Because I'm very familiar with that one.
Yep, it was after Shade of Poison Trees. So that was also a full band album. And so after the hiatus, he came back. He played with Third Eye Blind and then released the album Crooked Shadows. So it had been 8 or 9 years since the last album and released Crooked Shadows. And so since then, like the lineup has stabilized. So when you talk about Dashboard, you're talking about Chris Carrabba, but he's had other musicians in and out. And so, but since that 2015 point, the same handful of people has been with the band. So AJ Armandjé plays guitar. Chris Camrata, which I know is confusing, is the drummer. Chris Camrata is different from Chris Carrabba, and that Scott Shanebeck plays drums. And then there's this other woman that they added, Abby, and she was doing some backup singing for the last tour. But other than her, that lineup has been really stable. And then, so they've done several tours since Crooked Shadows. And then most recently in February, the latest album called All the Truth That I Can Tell came out. And it is like, I describe it as the places you've come to fear the most, but grown up. So it's like a matured version of that album. Like it's, the places you've come to fear the most is somebody in their early 20s, and 20 years later out comes All the Truth That I Can Tell. So yeah, that's up to the most recent history. I didn't talk about Chris's motorcycle accident, but I'm sure that we can get to that. And then I haven't touched on Chris's personal life, but I could touch on that as well.
Okay, so I'm curious, Charlie. Have you been a fan this whole time? So Stephanie just went through all the albums. Have you been the fan you are now and the fan you were 20 years ago all the way through? Or have you, like Chris, did you take a hiatus at all?
20 years ago, I was when I first heard Dashboard Confessional.
Hmm.
And like we said, I burned a lot in the beginning, but ever since probably after graduating high school, going to college, I followed as much as I could with everything that came out. I don't think there was any point where I took a hiatus like the band did. So I've been very excited the last few years when there's been more releases than there had been over maybe the last decade.
I followed every album as well, but there was definitely like, after 2009's Alter the Ending that we mentioned, I think that was the electric and acoustic album. Is that right?
Yeah, so they released it. If you bought the CD, it was like one of
Yeah.
them was like the full band, and then the other one was the acoustic version. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So after that, I enjoyed that album, but then they were gone for a while, and actually I did like that Twin Forks project. As it happened, I guess you could say I was following that, and I was very well aware that it was the same guy from Dashboard. But I guess I didn't realize until they released Crooked Shadows in 2018 that they hadn't released an album as Dashboard, full album, in 9 years, which I was pretty amazed by after that happened. What I was even more amazed by as a fan is I believe Crooked Shadows and All the Truth That I Can Tell are the best work they've done since roughly 2006. Dusk and Summer is where I would put that. And so I really love the last two albums, is what I'm saying. If I was ever going away, I was brought right back. And I've seen them, I've seen them in that time. We'll talk more about live shows, but I saw them in concert in that time and that sort of thing. I feel like Chris Carrabba stayed pretty active, and I like the way you put that, Stephanie, that when we're talking about Dashboard, we're basically talking about Chris Carrabba with a rotating cast of musicians for the most part, but you say that it's been pretty consistent these last few years, right?
Right. Yeah. This is honestly my favorite lineup of the band in 20 years.
So, knowing the little bit you guys know about Andrew's music, so something corporate, maybe more pop punk, the grungy sort of thing, and then Jack's Mannequin, more piano rock, piano pop, and now his new stuff is definitely more piano pop. Why do you think that Dashboard and Andrew decided to tour together this summer?
Yeah, so I did like a quick Wikipedia dive on Andrew, and
Uh-huh.
apparently they both released records on Drive Through Records. So that was what Swiss Army Romance came out
Mm-hmm.
under. And then they've also both toured with Newfound Glory in the past. And then apparently Andrew wrote on Lindsey Sterling's record.
Yeah, great song.
Yeah, so she played on Crooked Shadows.
I did not know that was her playing on Crooked Shadows.
Yeah,
I knew there was
yeah.
violin. I just didn't know it was Lindsey Sterling. That's great.
And then I think that Chris tours with bands that he enjoys, that he wants to listen to every night for, a
Hmm.
couple of months. He chooses openers really well. So like some of my favorite musicians now either open for him or he's covered them. So like This Wild Life and The Maine, and then Julian Baker, like those are like my three favorite musicians outside of Dashboard. And I
Hmm.
discovered them because of Dashboard.
Yeah, he's done a cover of Jamie by Weezer, which I love
Yes.
Weezer, and I love that cover. It's pretty amazing. Charlie, I know that you've seen Dashboard several times in concert. Do you want to talk a little bit about your history seeing them live?
Sure. I have seen them multiple times across. Well, I would refer to Dashboard Professional as an era band because 20 years ago, it's a completely different sound and, like Stephanie said, lineup and feel than it currently is. So my first experience was all the way back when I was in high school, 2004. I saw them during the Honda Civic tour. They were with Head Automatica, the Get Up Kids, and Thrice.
I was there too.
Okay. Where did you see them?
Cincinnati.
Okay, I saw them in Pittsburgh, so probably right around the same leg of the tour we would have seen them. I remember that tour being when he debuted So Long, So Long for the first time, which was the first time he was on a piano.
Mhm.
And that was right around Spider-Man 2. So Vindicated also was being played during those tours. So that was pretty exciting because that was my first experience hearing new Dashboard after, several years of just the first couple albums. And
Hmm.
then right after that, when I started college, my university had a pool in the fall for who the student body wanted to come play there later that year. and Dashboard Confessional was one of the finalists to choose, and they won that vote. And they came to my university my freshman year, and
Where'd
that
you
was
go to
just amazing.
college?
I went to At first I went to Gannon University in Erie, so I saw them with all my college friends. So in high school, this was something that my friends and I bonded over. This was a big part of our high school years. We all enjoyed listening to Dashboard together, and then I got to spread that to my next group of friends in college, which was great. And several more times in that era of Dashboard Confessional, I think maybe the best of that was when they were touring Dusk and Summer.
Okay.
That now you said the current lineup is your favorite lineup.
I know that's an unpopular opinion.
I think that my favorite lineup would have been the lineup that toured on the Dusk and Summer tour, because they had John Ralston playing in the band with them, and he had helped with guitar on the first album, on the Swiss Army Romance, and he had come back kind of full circle to finish with Dashboard on that tour. And that's when the band first introduced a violin, and that's when Susan was playing on tour with them, which gives them just another depth to their sound, which I really enjoyed. As of late, because of what's going on in the world, there hasn't been a lot of touring. But this fall, somehow I lucked into, on a random Thursday night, Chris shows up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and plays. Just the whole band was there. It was just them. They did a set in Harrisburg, and I got to see them that night, which was a totally different experience, because it was a club versus I'm used to seeing them in a big venue, like in a huge parking lot sound. And now I was in this small little club, and it was just the band and me and maybe 100 other people, which was crazy, because nothing else was going on at the time, and somehow I lucked into that.
I'm pretty sure I saw them the first time when John Ralston opened, and I only remember John Ralston's name because I still have a CD that I bought at that show. So, because I enjoyed him. That was at a college, so I wonder if that was a whole college tour that they were doing, because you said they came to your college with...
I think so, because they also went to Moorhead in Kentucky. I went to UK, but I hopped in the car and went to Moorhead. So I think must have been 2006.
Okay, yeah, 2006 then. That sounds about right. Dusk and Summer, would that have been...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I more recently saw Dashboard. I don't know if it's the second or third time. I can't remember whether I've seen them twice or three times, to be honest. I saw them at Bunbury Music Festival in Cincinnati in, I think it was 2018, but I could be wrong. And you're right, Charlie. A different vibe. It just feels a little different. But I think it also had to do with the fact that it was a festival, it was outdoors. You have a mixed crowd of fans, non-fans, and everybody in between. Yeah, so I kind of got to see what you guys are calling both eras, maybe, of Dashboard live, and I enjoyed them both. So, I forgot, I did see them in Honolulu, Hawaii, back in 2004. I actually forgot about that show, and that
is so dope.
And that was in a club. Yeah, it just happened to be the time I was there back in 2004. They were touring through there, so I forgot about it. So I have seen them 3 times then. So I guess that was the first time. So the first time was in the club. Second was at the college in 2006. Third time was probably Bunbury. How about you, Stephanie? I know you've seen Dashboard quite a few times from, if I remember correctly.
35 times. Yeah. So
that's quite a few. I haven't seen any artists that many times.
It is quite a few. So there were maybe 5 or 6 of those were like before the hiatus. The other, 30 or whatever have been after the hiatus. And that's just because I was young and broke before the hiatus. And now I'm less young and less broke. And so I have, the time and the means to go see them. But yeah, like I said, that first time was in Cincinnati at Riverbend Music Center. And it was that same tour that Charlie was talking about. And then the most recent was probably my favorite. So when Dashboard announces a tour, I look at the tour schedule and I pick usually like 3 to 4 dates and kind of make a trip out of it. So I'll just like go and follow them through a couple of cities or a few cities. And so this last time I followed them from Louisville to Knoxville and then to this place called Pelham, Tennessee. And in Pelham, I'd never heard of this place in my life. But there is a concert venue in a cave. like in a literal cave. And so they
Crazy.
were there for 2 nights. And that first night in Pelham, it was my 34th dashboard show. It was on my 34th birthday. And so I was really excited that that had lined up. And it was just the best birthday. I got to Louisville. My parents live in Louisville. And so I got there and my mom immediately sat me down in front of her iPad and she got me a cameo from Chris for my birthday.
Wow.
So the first thing he said was, you know, when your parents described you in this request, I knew exactly who you were. And I'm like, that tracks.
Oh my gosh. You're the girl in the front row, probably.
That's exactly what he said. The red hair in the front row.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, on my birthday, Chris kind of like came to the top of the stage and he waved to me and he said, happy birthday. And it was just like the best. It was the best birthday. I loved it so much.
That is so cool. How thoughtful of your parents to do that for you, for your mom. That's really neat. Are either of you going to this summer tour where Dashboard is touring with Andrew?
Yes.
Okay. Charlie, where are you going to see them at?
I'm going to see them in Pittsburgh. I think it's August 16th.
Okay. How about you, Stephanie?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes. I'll be in Columbus and then I'll also be in Pittsburgh. Usually I would go to all of the Ohio, Indiana, Michigan shows, anything within driving distance. But my sister moved to Alaska. And so we had planned a trip and it's that week that they're doing the Indiana, Michigan, Ohio tours. But I am going to make it to Pittsburgh and to Columbus.
Yeah. Alaska sounds more important in that time frame. So maybe not. Okay. Alaska sounds maybe like a once in a lifetime or a couple times in a lifetime, whereas Dashboard will keep touring, I'm sure, and yeah. But I know every time is special. I don't want to take anything away from that, but it's cool you get to go visit your sister. So I'm going to be going to the Cincinnati. Let's see, what order is it? It's actually Cleveland first, then Cincinnati, then Columbus, Ohio. So I'm pretty fortunate to live in the Columbus area, whereas because they're going to be playing in all 3 of the big cities in Ohio, I've never done 3 shows on one tour for any artist. So I'm pretty excited. I'm looking forward to the social atmosphere of kind of seeing some of the same fans over and over again, the people I've met through the fan group and that sort of thing. So I'm super pumped about all that. My wife is going to 2 of them with me. I got to tell you, my wife is not a Dashboard fan. How do I sell Dashboard to my wife? And I know that not everybody can be a fan of just anything, so there may be no way, but maybe you got some advice for me there.
I don't know that I have advice, but my husband is not particularly a Dashboard fan, but he's seen them 7 times with me.
Wow.
Most of the time I go to these shows alone, but occasionally I will drag him. So he's seen them 7 times.
Same.
And Stolen was also, our first wedding dance. So I've sort of like forced Dashboard on him.
Fortunately, I've had better luck with my wife, with Andrew. She's a fan like I am, and she enjoys the shows and things. Yeah, she even plays his music when I'm not around, which is just I love that. So, yeah, actually, and that is my next question. So, if you had to pitch to somebody who's going to see Andrew, let's say you know a hardcore Andrew McMahon fan, and they're like, yeah, this other band called Dashboard Confessional is opening, or this other band Dashboard Confessional is closing, because I guess my impression is they're alternating and who's finishing the night. If you look at the website, the tour on Andrew's site, it says them in a different order on certain nights. So that's kind of the speculation out there among Andrew fans anyway. But anyway, how would you what would you say to an Andrew fan if an Andrew probably an Andrew fan's listening to this? So what would you say to an Andrew fan about Dashboard Confessional? Why should they stick around for Dashboard?
So Dashboard fans will sing every word of every song. It's there's that really kind of famous MTV Unplugged.
Yeah.
And no one had ever heard of this band before. But then he gets on the show and all of a sudden every person in that audience, except for one, and if you watch the DVD, you'll know exactly who it is, knows all the words. And so it was
someone's husband or boyfriend, obviously.
Yes. Exactly. But anyways, so we sing every word of every song. There's just like this energy that's like infectious and joyful. And, when I've been to some of these other shows where he tours with bands who have super fans like me. So for example, this last tour, he toured with Jimmy Eat World, and meeting somebody who is also a super fan, even if it's not of the same thing. I see something in them and they see something in me, that just like having a love for this. And there's just like a connection and like a point of connection and friendship in that.
You got anything there, Charlie, for an Andrew fan who is maybe not familiar with Dashboard and considering leaving after Andrew?
So even if you're not a fan of Dashboard Confessional, something that Chris integrates into, I think, every concert I've ever been to, he'll cover at least one song.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not strictly going to hear Dashboard Confessional music. You'll hear somebody else's song reinterpreted and played for you in a way that you've probably never heard it before. The covers that he does, sometimes they're better than the original. I know how that sounds coming from a fan, but I honestly think there are some versions of songs that he does more justice to than the original version. And something we didn't talk about when we were going through Dashboard's history is there are several albums that have been released by either Dashboard Confessional or Chris that are strictly cover albums that are entirely reworking original songs from another performer or group. And like I said, that's something to stick around and to look out for, because they always sound great.
Awesome. So stay for the passion and stay for the covers. That sounds good to me. So is there a specific song that either of you are kind of hoping they'll play or waiting to hear in concert, or maybe you've heard it many times before in concert and you're just looking forward to that one?
So I have very unpopular Dashboard opinions, but I love to hear a good deep cut. So in 2020, so the last normal thing I did, I saw Dashboard 4 times. On each of those times, they played a song, Several Ways to Die Trying, which is off of Mark Mission, A Brand of Scar. And I had never heard that played live. And so I got to hear it then. That was really exciting. And then I also love new songs. I know most fans they don't want to hear the new stuff. They want to hear the old stuff, but that's not me. I love the most recent album. In this past March, he played Better of Me, which is off of the new album. And I really enjoyed that. I would love to hear another one, maybe Southbound and Sinking. But anything off that new album, I would love to hear at least one.
Yeah, I'm with you on the new stuff. Like I told you earlier, I think their new stuff's the best thing they've done since the mid-2000s. Heck, if they got up there and played like half the stuff they played was from the last 2 albums, I'd be happy with that, because I do like... I mean, there's a difference between stuff I don't know. So if it was brand new and I hadn't heard anything off the album yet, yeah, I don't know that I want to hear that. But for the albums that I've been able to get some familiarity with up ahead of the show, like I have been with this new one, yeah, I'd like to hear some of that. So I hear that. How about you, Charlie? Is there a song or a couple of songs that you're looking forward to hearing?
Well, unfortunately for you, recently it's been the deep cuts. It's been the popular older music that resonates with the older fans. Now, I haven't heard them since the new album came out, so I'm sure there's going to be several of the newer songs mixed in on this tour. But I mean, I have nothing to complain about hearing songs from the first 2 albums over and over and over again.
I do love those first 2 albums. I mean, I can sing them. I'll be one of the people in the crowd with the even more hardcore Dashboard fans, and I'll be singing all the songs back too. So I completely get that, because we've had 20 years with that music. So
what is the required listening for us? Like, I know you said you aren't going to require it, but like if there were like 3 songs that you were like, this is what you should listen to before the show.
Do you want to know the most likely songs he's going to play?
Yes.
Is that what you're kind of... Okay.
Yes.
Almost always he will play Fire Escape, Cecilia and the Satellite, and I would say I Woke Up in a Car.
Okay.
And that's a good variety, because 2 of them are Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness songs, so newer in the past 8 years, let's say. And the third one is off of their very first full-length major label debut. So I Woke Up in a Car is a Something Corporate song that I think everybody should know from that era. So and then there's some great deep cuts, but I could go on and on about my favorite songs. I mean, the song I will tell you, and you can feel free to go listen or not. The song that he probably won't play that I keep wishing he will is called As You Sleep, and it's the first Something Corporate song on the album North. I don't think I've heard it live yet. If I have, it was so long ago that I don't remember. That's the one that I'd recommend if I were to say, hey, listen to this song. Even though you might not hear that one live. Something you ought to know, and you may already know about Andrew, is he always brings almost always brings the other artist that he's touring with out on stage to do a song, or the entire band of, the other band out to do a song, a very specific song usually for Andrew, actually. Is there a song that you think Chris will bring Andrew out for? Knowing that Andrew plays the piano, or even that maybe he would just be singing along with Chris. Is there a song you think he'll bring Andrew out for?
So Long, So Long. Yeah,
I'm not familiar with that one.
It's Off Dusk and Summer. It's a piano song. It's got some really gorgeous harmonies, and I really think that would be it.
Well, you'd have to learn it ahead of time. So, Andrew, if you're listening, make sure you learn that song so you can play it for us this summer. Wishful thinking. Charlie, anything that you can think of that would be like maybe a fan favorite or something that Andrew could jump on and play or sing with Chris?
There's one song that unfortunately I haven't heard recently, but back when it was a staple during every show, the song Remember to Breathe always gets an extended ending when it's performed live. And there have been times where the other group that he's touring with, their lead singer will come out and perform part of the extended portion of that song. So I'm kind of hoping that gets dusted off and brought out on this tour, because like I said, I haven't heard it live in years. And I don't know what happened that it's got cut from the set list, but it's always been one of my favorites to hear live, just because there's always some sort of unique ending added to it.
He played it in 2020 and this past March, so maybe it'll be around later this year.
Perfect.
That would be cool. I am familiar with that song, and I love that song, actually. That's a special one. Yeah, that would be cool. So, is there a couple of songs that you can give Andrew fans to kind of prepare us? Maybe songs that would be commonly played at Dashboard shows, or you would think would be played, or that maybe even songs that an Andrew fan might like to kind of get us pumped for the show. Is there any songs you can think of like that by Dashboard?
All of them.
Good answer.
So I have 3 answers to this question. If you have some time, if you have a few, an hour or so, there is a very handy dandy album on Spotify called The Best Ones of the Best Ones, which is basically a greatest hits album. It doesn't include anything from the most recent album, but that'll get you, most of the songs that you will probably hear at the show. If you only have a little bit of time and you only want to listen to, 2 or 3 songs, then the required listening before you come is hands down Vindicated and Screaming Infidelities. And then if you want some deep cuts like that, I just think are sort of emblematic of Dashboard, but probably won't get played: Hell on the Throat, Just What to Say, and Several Ways to Die Trying, which are all album closers. And for some reason, I love the closers.
Yeah, I actually know 2 or 3 of those songs, so I'm kind of impressed with myself. How about you, Charlie? Any songs besides all of them that you can recommend?
So there's a song off the Dusk and Summer album that usually will be played live. It's called Don't Wait. And it has some backing vocals that on the album version, Chris will do himself, but during a live performance, it's a big audience participation portion. So if you're going to the show, expect having to sing that part of the song.
Okay, I know exactly which part you're talking about. I'm not even going to try to attempt it, but
that's a good answer.
I'll look forward to that, actually. You guys have named a lot of songs that I love by Dashboard, so now I'm even more excited. Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about that you feel like we haven't covered? I know, Stephanie, you mentioned Chris's motorcycle accident. I know that in June 2020, he had a very serious motorcycle accident that rendered him unconscious. He was in the hospital for a while, is my understanding, and had to go through therapy. Is that right?
Yeah, it was bad. It was a bad accident. It was in that really turbulent time. We were all in lockdown, and there were all of the BLM protests, and it was sort of unusual not to hear from Chris. Usually he will chime in when major events like that happen. And then we found out that the reason he wasn't chiming in on it was because he had been in a terrible motorcycle accident. He had surgery on both of his arms and had to basically relearn how to do everything, including playing guitar. And it was like a really long, hard recovery. And if you can maybe go to YouTube or whatever. There's a little video that they did before All the Truth That I Can Tell. Chris was going into his garage and looking at all of like his helmet and the stuff that he was wearing that day. And it's just like a really like emotional moment where, you know, we could have lost him. And Chris is a beautiful human being, and like to lose him would be a disaster. And so it was really emotional for me. I guess this is a moment to add that, you know, I hear people that like they've had these heroes or musicians that they've looked up to for, you know, most of their lives, and then they turn out to be not great people. And that is just like the complete opposite of my experience. I have loved Chris and his music for 20 years, and it turns out he is just a great person, just so caring of his fans and the world. And I just appreciate him so much for that.
It seems to me, from what I know of that accident, that seeing him play guitar on stage, seeing him perform, is kind of like seeing a miracle after what happened to him in that accident 2 years ago. That's pretty amazing, the full recovery he's made, and I'm just glad to see it. I wish him all the best. Well, I want to thank both of you, Charlie and Stephanie, for coming on here and talking about Dashboard. This has been really awesome because, as you may know, this podcast is almost solely about talking Andrew McMahon songs. I pick a song per episode and I talk about it. And, you know, I've talked about seeing Andrew live, but I've never fully focused on one other artist. And I was really looking forward to it. And you guys met and exceeded all my expectations because we got to kind of express our passion for a whole different artist. A lot of what you guys have said tonight reminds me of myself as a fan, my relationship with Andrew's music, and my connection to him and his music. So it's really neat to talk to other fans of a different artist that feel similarly. So it's kind of, we have that connection even though it's with a different artist. I thought it was really cool when he made the hint to his fan group about who he was touring with this summer. So months ago, he said, "I think you're going to like this tour. It's a hero of the era."
Oh, yeah.
And so that was our hint. And I figured you guys would like that because when he announced it, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. A hero of his era, you know, something corporate and Jack's Mannequin years. So one that, because there is a lot of overlap in fans. You know, a lot of us, something corporate Jack's Mannequin fans, loved Dashboard and vice versa, I'm sure. So I just thought that was a neat way. But I had all kinds of names in mind, and for some reason I didn't come up with that one. But when he said it, I was like, that's the one that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and he's such a champion for, musicians in the generations behind him. So I can't tell you the number of times that I've heard, you know, a podcast or an interview or whatever with a younger or newer band. And they said, oh, yeah, Chris let us stay in his basement when we were traveling through Nashville. Or he'll specifically, call out newer, younger artists when he's asked about like what he's listening to. And he's very thoughtful about that. So yeah, he's definitely a hero of the era. Who else did you have in mind when he said that?
Actually, Hayley Williams of Paramore.
Okay.
I didn't know Paramore was getting back together, so I thought it'd be Hayley Williams solo.
Okay. Is
someone that came to mind, but there was two I had in mind. That was Hayley Williams was the one that was at the top of mine, though. I don't know why I didn't think of Chris Carrabba. I don't know. I didn't even know those two guys knew each other, but I guess I should have known, like you pointed out, Drive Through Records. We didn't even mention Warped Tour.
Oh, yeah.
They've both shared that stage. It was a good surprise, let me put it that way. So I would have loved to go to that Jimmy Eat World Dashboard show because I love both of those bands. But I'm fortunate that because I at least get to see half of that bill with Dashboard and my favorite artist, Andrew. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. But Stephanie, maybe I'll see you at the Columbus show because I will be at that show. So look forward to it. And is there anything else you guys want to say before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. This was so much fun. This is my favorite thing to talk about. I could talk about Dashboard all night. So I'm really excited for this tour, even though I only get to go to 2. and I'm just really looking forward to it.
Yeah, same here. Thank you for having us. I'm glad we got to talk about one of our favorite things in this world, Dashboard Confessional and Chris Carrabba. And like Stephanie said, I'm very much looking forward to seeing them perform live again this summer.
For sure. I'm looking forward to it too. And I'm looking forward to it even more now than I was before I talk to you guys tonight. So thank you. All right. Have a good night.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you.